The first time I met the veteran's daughter, she was standing alone in the corner of a crowded community center, holding a sealed envelope so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. She looked like someone trying not to break apart in public. People moved around her carrying coffee cups, chatting, laughing, living ordinary lives. But she stood perfectly still, staring at the letter as if it weighed more than the world. When our eyes met, she walked toward me. "Are you Daniel Harper?" she asked softly. I nodded. She swallowed hard. "My father said if I ever received this letter, I shouldn't open it alone." She held up the envelope. "And he said you were the person who should be with me when I did." For a moment, I forgot how to breathe, because I knew exactly who her father was. And I hadn't seen him in 23 years. His name was William Carter, my best friend, the man who had once saved my life, and the man I had failed to save in return. The last time I saw William, we were both young soldiers returning from overseas. We had survived things neither of us liked talking about. Explosions, loss, fear, the kind of memories that followed you home and sat beside your bed at night. Back then, William was the strongest man I knew. Not physically, spiritually. He carried everyone else's burdens without complaint. If someone was struggling, William noticed. If someone was hungry, William shared. If someone felt alone, William sat beside them. He had a gift for making people feel seen. The world needs more people like that. Unfortunately, the world often takes the most from people who give the most. Life pulled us in different directions after the military. I moved to Ohio. He settled in Montana. We exchanged Christmas cards for a few years. Then life happened. Jobs, marriage, kids, responsibilities. The distance between us grew. One day the cards stopped coming, and eventually I assumed he had simply moved on. Now his daughter stood before me holding a letter, a final letter, which meant William Carter was gone. "When did he pass away?" I asked quietly. 3 weeks ago. I lowered my eyes. 3 weeks. 3 weeks too late to tell him I still remembered. 3 weeks too late to say thank you. 3 weeks too late for everything. "My father talked about you all the time," she said. I looked up in surprise. "He did?" She smiled sadly. "You were his hero." The words hit me like a punch. "No," I said immediately. "He saved me." That's not what he believed. We sat down at a table near the back of the room. The envelope rested between us. Neither of us touched it. "Why me?" I finally asked. She took a deep breath. "Dad left instructions." She pulled a folded piece of paper from her purse. His handwriting. Even after all these years, I recognized it instantly. "If you're reading this, Daniel is sitting beside you. Don't open the letter without him. He deserves to hear the truth too." My stomach tightened. Truth? What truth? The daughter, her name was Emma, looked nervous. "I haven't opened it because I promised him I wouldn't." "Then let's keep that promise." Her hands trembled as she carefully broke the seal. Inside was a thick stack of pages, much longer than either of us expected. Emma unfolded the first page and began reading. "Dear Emma, if you're reading this, then my journey is over. Don't be sad for too long. I lived more years than many of the friends I left behind overseas. Every sunrise after that felt like a gift." The first few paragraphs were filled with warmth, stories, memories, advice about kindness, about family, about courage. It sounded exactly like William. Then Emma reached the middle of the letter. Her voice caught, and suddenly everything changed. "There's something I never told you, or Daniel. Not because I wanted to hide it, because I was ashamed." I leaned forward. Emma continued reading. "When Daniel and I returned home from the war, I wasn't okay, not even close. I smiled for everyone. I told people I was fine, but inside I was falling apart. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stop remembering. And one night I decided I couldn't keep living." Emma stopped reading. Tears filled her eyes. My chest tightened. I stared at the page, unable to move, unable to speak. She continued. "That night I drove to a bridge outside town. I planned to end everything. I truly believed the world would be better without me." The room felt suddenly smaller, quieter. "He never told me, not once." Then came the next line. "But Daniel called." Completely out of nowhere. Emma looked at me. I looked back, confused. "What?" She kept reading. He said he had a bad feeling, said he couldn't explain it, said he just wanted to hear my voice. I remembered, barely, a random phone call, a strange urge, nothing more, or so I thought. I stayed on that phone for 3 hours. 3 hours that saved my life. Daniel never knew where I was standing, never knew what I intended to do. He just talked about baseball, about terrible military food, about the future, about anything, until the sun came up. And by then I no longer wanted to jump. Emma lowered the page. The tears were flowing freely now. Mine weren't far behind. I remembered that call. I remembered thinking William sounded exhausted. I remembered refusing to hang up, but I never knew why. Not until this moment. The letter continued. For years I wanted to tell him, but every time I tried, I couldn't. How do you tell someone they accidentally saved your life? So instead I carried gratitude silently. I got married, had children, built a life, watched my daughter grow into an incredible woman, all because of one phone call. Emma stopped reading and covered her mouth. The room blurred. I blinked hard, but more surprises waited. The next pages described something else, something none of us expected. A list, names, dozens of names, neighbors, friends, teachers, single parents, veterans, widows, people William had quietly helped over the years. One family lost their home in a fire. William paid their hotel bill. A student couldn't afford college books. William bought them anonymously. An elderly widow couldn't repair her roof. William covered the expense, over and over, for decades. Acts of kindness nobody knew about. Emma looked stunned. I never knew, neither did I. Yet it sounded exactly like him. William had never wanted credit. He believed kindness was most powerful when nobody was watching. Near the end of the letter came another request. Emma's voice trembled as she read it aloud. If you're wondering what to do with your grief, here's my answer. Help someone, not because it fixes sadness, but because love grows when it's shared. Take whatever goodness I gave you and pass it forward. That's how people stay alive after they're gone. Not in photographs, not in cemeteries, in actions, in compassion, in the lives they touch. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally Emma folded the pages. I thought this letter would be about saying goodbye. It was, I said, but maybe not in the way you expected. A few weeks later, Emma called me. She had an idea. Actually, she had several. And somehow I got recruited. The first project was small. We paid utility bills for 3 struggling families. Then we organized repairs for an elderly veteran's house. Then we created a scholarship fund in William's name. The community joined. Then more people joined. Then even more. Something incredible happened. Every person we helped seemed determined to help someone else. Kindness spread like ripples across water. One act becoming 2, 2 becoming 10, 10 becoming hundreds. A year later we held a community gathering honoring William. More than 300 people attended. Many had never met him, yet his influence had reached them anyway. One by one, people shared stories. A waitress whose rent he secretly paid. A teenager he mentored. A veteran he talked down during a dark night. A widow who received anonymous groceries for months. Story after story. The room overflowed with tears and gratitude. Then Emma walked to the stage. She carried the final letter. The same letter. The one she couldn't open alone. I used to think my father's greatest achievement was his military service, she told the crowd. He was proud of that service. We all are. She paused. But now I think his greatest achievement was something else. The room grew silent. He never stopped choosing kindness. Not once. Not when life became difficult. Not when nobody was watching. Not when he received nothing in return. He simply kept choosing kindness. Again and again. Every single day. The audience stood. Hundreds of people, applauding a man who wasn't there, and somehow was. After the event ended, Emma and I remained behind to clean up. The sun was setting outside. Golden light spilled through the windows. She smiled. You know, she said, Dad was right. About what? Not opening the letter alone. I nodded. I think he was. She looked toward the empty chairs. Do you ever wish he were here to see all this? I laughed softly. Every day. Then I remembered something William once told me decades ago, back when we were young, back before life scattered us across the country. He had said, the purpose of life isn't to be remembered, it's to leave people better than you found them. At the time, I thought it sounded nice. Now I understood. William Carter never became famous, never became rich, never appeared on television. The world would probably never know his name. But hundreds of lives were better because he existed, maybe thousands. And isn't that the kind of legacy that matters most? As Emma and I locked the doors and stepped into the evening air, I looked up at the fading sky. For the first time in years, I didn't feel regret. I didn't feel guilty for losing touch. I didn't feel haunted by things left unsaid. Because somehow, through one final letter, William had said everything that mattered, and he had given us one last mission, to keep choosing kindness, to keep showing up for people, to keep making impossible days a little easier for strangers carrying invisible burdens. The truth is, most of us will never know how much a single conversation, a single gesture, or a single act of compassion can mean to someone else. You may never know whose life you're changing. William didn't. I didn't. Maybe that's the point. The greatest acts of humanity are often the ones performed without applause, without recognition, and without expectation. Just one person helping another, one heart reaching for another. And somewhere, because of that simple choice, a life continues, just like William's did, just like his kindness still does.